Hello, everyone. Welcome to Yachting International Radio. You're with Karine Rayson from the Crew Coach on the Wellbeing Project. Today, I have Alex Hanlon with us, who has a company called Fair Pay Negotiations. Now, I reached out to Alex because my tribe members, which is my membership of professional yacht crew members, were very keen to hear how you can negotiate a pay rise. I think it's something that may resonate with most of the audience in terms of having the confidence to be able to put yourself forward and express your value. Before I go into it any further, Alex, welcome to the show. And I'm going to hand it over to you to do an intro, but I can't wait to actually dissect some of the key points that really resonated with me in your bio. But do you want to just share with the audience a little bit about you and what you do?
Thanks, Karine. Yeah. And thank you for the opportunity of being here. It's nice to be able to connect with you in this way. So I'm a negotiation coach. And what I do is I help people to learn how to negotiate a whole lot better and find their way through to career enhancing opportunities and the pay and conditions that they are dreaming of. And I also do commercial coaching. I've got a background in negotiation, commercials and mediation. So I help people prepare for those types of circumstances as well. And this came about after a sort of a long and varied career in a lot of different fields. I think that's probably what you're referring to.
Yes.
And it was a situation actually at a conference last year that made me realize that actually a lot of what I've been doing over the years has had this very strong negotiation piece running through the middle of it. I was at a conference listening to women talk about the gender wage gap, and I started feeling like it's time for me to make a contribution there to help resolve that. It's a complex issue, but part of the reason that women don't get paid quite so much as men is that they often don't ask. And so a lot of what I do is I help people to find the confidence to dig deep into their inner fears and to stand up and say, this is what I want. So that's what I do.
Fantastic. I remember dating a guy who I believe he was working for Qantas and he was going for a more senior position and didn't have all the qualifications of skill set. And I just thought, my God, you're so gutsy. Is this guy a narcissist or what is that about? Like, I would never apply for something that I'm not qualified to do. And it's just interesting to hear the different gender perspectives on that.
Yeah, totally. And actually, it's a well-known attribute and a difference between men and women. And I think it was established it'd be coming up to 20 years ago by Hewlett-Packard, who were trying to figure out why it was that women weren't becoming so senior in their company. And they did some work and they figured out that men and women apply for roles at different times. So men will look at 10 recruitment criteria for a job and they'll meet 6 of them. They'll go, yeah, I can do the rest. That's fine. And they apply. And women will look at 10 and they'll go, oh, I can only just do that. So I should maybe do some more and then I'll apply. So it all starts at that moment when women sit back and want and feel like they want to be super over-prepared to take a step forward. But the guys have already got there by that stage, you see. So it's fascinating that we are motivated. Generally speaking, we're motivated so differently.
And do you think it's an intergenerational thing, a cultural thing, or what are the contributing factors in terms of how we perceive ourselves and ask for what we want?
That's such an interesting discussion, that one. And I think it's still one of those hotly debated topics because you're starting to touch on the nature-nurture debate right in psychology, and that's a long way from settled. We do know, though, the research tells us that the attributes that women have in terms of scoring very high in agreeableness, and that's just a label that's given to a group of character traits, things like understanding, empathy, being able to connect with people, being able to engage, some problem solving stuff is in there as well. It's a bundle of things that women more naturally score very highly at, and guys tend to score a lot lower at. Conversely, in another area of personality development, men are, generally speaking, much higher risk takers. So they are much more comfortable with stepping out and saying, yeah, I'm ready for this, or taking on something where they might not know what the outcome of that thing is. So those two things are really heavily influential when it comes to the differences in men and women in that negotiation and applying for job space. It's just our baseline around at what point do we feel comfortable is different, is really different.
Yeah. Okay. So I'll stick with this and ask you my questions at the end, maybe. But in terms of when people come to you for help, what specifically do they ask for help on or for?
Yeah, but this was really interesting because I deal with a lot of women. Lots of people want advice and support around where can I take my career more broadly? Where can I take my career? So getting clear around what it is that you want is often something that shows up for me in my business. And because I deal with so many women, I have asked them what holds them back from getting what they want, from negotiating what they want. And 72% of my network tell me that the thing that holds them back from asking is that they're super anxious and worried that by asking, they'll burn up their relationship with their boss. That somehow by asking for better paying conditions or a career enhancing opportunity, that their boss is going to think poorly of them. Now, I've been a boss myself, and I share stories about how that's absolutely not the case. So a lot of what I often start with is how to figure out what your boss relationship is like at the moment, to put together a bit of a plan around that, and to work on the things that will get you information from your boss about how you're doing. So debriefing projects and initiatives that you've been working on, asking them for their feedback is really good data that then helps you to understand how you can improve and gets you seen by your boss at the same time. Because I think one of the myths that we all start with is that if we work really hard, if we're just over here working really hard, that somehow it magically gets noticed. But it doesn't, right? It doesn't get noticed. And part of the reason is that bosses, super busy people, super busy. And one of the things I say that the enemy of connection is time. So if you don't have time, it's really hard to connect with someone and see what they're doing and understand them a little bit more. So if you're a busy boss, it's really hard to get on their radar. So taking little moments where you can ask for feedback, you can debrief a project. They're just little moments that you can put in your boss's agenda that help to get you noticed. So by the time you get to the point where you're asking for a pay rise or asking to go onto that special project that they're working on, you've already primed the relationship. Your boss has already noticed you. So getting noticed, getting a plan around your boss relationship is really important, I think.
Okay. And what has been your standout win for a client? I'm sure you've got many, but what's one that comes to mind?
Yeah, I think I've had one client of mine who was able to negotiate 65% of her salary. So we were pretty happy about that because that was a cash injection of, I think it was just over 100,000. She managed to go up. So she had to leave one organisation, go to another one to do that. And at the same time, she negotiated professional development for herself. But I've also had other ones that have, so that sounds like a bundle that's just, wow, that sounds really cool. But I've also had other women who've negotiated, instead of negotiating more money for themselves, they've negotiated more time. And I had one client whose time was really valuable because there was a lot of stuff happening in her personal life with her kids, and they really needed to have kind of mum around. And so for her, that was like one of those priceless moments. It's really hard to put a value on that. But for her, being able to negotiate down, she basically negotiated the same position, but only working 4 days a week. So she got a long weekend every weekend with her kids. And for her at that time, that was probably worth hundreds and hundreds of thousands.
Yes. And I think that's a good tip right there, is know what you want and what you're asking for.
Absolutely. It's really worth thinking that through, and also starting to think it's not just about money.
Yes.
It's a wonderful book written by a guy called Daniel Pink. It's called Drive.
Oh.
And Drive talks about the things that actually motivate all of us. Have you got a copy there?
No, I'm going to write that down right now.
It's a really good read, and it's not a hard one either. Like, he's a fantastic writer. So he talks about the types of motivations that we have. And for most of us, you only really need to talk about the money side until somebody feels like that quantum of money is actually equivalent to the value that they're bringing. So he talks about it as you only need to talk about money for as long as it takes to get money off the table. And you talk about things like autonomy and recognition and growth and being seen and growing into being a respected leader, because that's what really stimulates us as human beings. That's what really gets someone to feel like, yeah, that workplace sees me, understands me. No, I can thrive there. And when we're in places like that, we will stay for a long time, even if the money's not fabulous.
Yes. Fascinating.
Yeah.
So a question that captains may ask, in terms of negotiating with a high net worth individual, would this strategy be the same?
Yeah, I guess there's a difference, I think, between some commercial negotiations and a pay rise negotiation. And the reason I say that is that it's about where you want to leave a relationship. So in commercial negotiation, often it's a negotiation about, I've got a fixed amount and I want to get as much as I can for it. And so it can be quite combative. But when you're talking about your boss, this is someone who you want to have a good working relationship with. And at the end of the negotiation with them, you want them to feel like, oh, that was actually quite good. I didn't know I didn't know they had it in them. But you want them impressed that you asked, because part of our objective with our boss is always to turn our boss into our biggest champion, the person who, because of their role and the relationship that you have with them, can have so much influence over your career, can be the one who, in a room of other people, when you're not there, will speak up for you and say, actually, I know someone who can do that, standing on her head, right? You want them to be that person. Yeah, so the relationship that you have with them is really important. You can't go all Godfather on them and say, I'm going to give them an offer they can't refuse, because what you're doing in that circumstance is you're burning up the relationship. So the type of negotiation that I train for pay rise negotiations is collaborative negotiation, where you've got a set of objectives for yourself and you've got some objectives for your boss as well, and you've got to look after your boss through that whole thing. So you can't go into that competitive blood sport mode of negotiating that is often, we see that in the Hollywood movies type of stuff. We're talking about something that is more curious-based. We're curious about one another. We're in a problem-solving mode, pretty creative. Getting into a space where you've got a few moments to talk can be one of the challenging things about it. And then working with your boss to find solutions to the problem of your dissatisfaction.
Okay.
And sometimes bosses go, I don't care if you're dissatisfied. If your boss is reacting like that, then we got to go back to your boss relationship as a starting point and prime that relationship differently. So by the time that you come and say, look, I found out from a guy on another boat, or I found out when I was over at this conference, I got together with this event and we started talking, and it feels like I've fallen behind the market a bit here and it's starting to make me distracted. If you prime your boss well, by the time you're having that conversation with them, they're going, oh, okay, I need to look after this person, right? Because the moment they're thinking that, then you can go into that sort of problem-solving mode where you work out what a good deal is for both of you. That's what they call the win negotiation.
Yes.
Then you leave that negotiation feeling, yeah, great, I got heard. My boss understands my circumstance a little more, is able to flex in a number of different ways. And your boss is feeling like it was a good, positive, constructive thing to do. And that person in their head is now a loyal employee for another period of time.
Yeah. You clearly are an expert in this area and have so much wisdom to share. I can talk to you for an hour. I think I'm going to have to save my questions for when you feature in the membership TCC tribe. Alex, can you tell us a little bit about what you'll be focusing on the workshop for the yacht crew?
So I guess what we'd go through is, how do you prepare for a negotiation? What are the types of things you need to think about? And we'll start with, how do you ascertain what your market value is? What is the research that you can do to figure out what people who have skills and experience like yours are actually getting paid? And of course, that varies by different regions. So there's a whole lot of judgment that you've got to throw in there. We've got some exercises around that. We also have a look at things like, what are the global trends that are affecting your sector? Because sometimes we have things that happen globally, like pandemics, that really knock sectors around and create a whole lot of change. So knowing what that is and understanding that, potentially from your boss's point of view, can be really helpful. And then organisations themselves, we go through a lot of change. So if you've just had your captain leave, or if you've just had a CEO change, or you've changed in a leadership team, then that could have a really big knock-on effect. And so you want to think about the timing of when you ask and how that might look for your organisation. And then, of course, we talk about your own performance. So knowing what are the things that bosses look out for. And the short thing is that they look out for where you've increased revenue, cut costs, and where you're looking after your customers so that they can get repeat business.
Yeah,
and those are always the three things that bosses look for. So we do a whole lot of, so in workshop mode, we do work around preparation. And then I spend some time on what your ask is. So your ask items are usually salary, benefits, and a career enhancing opportunity. So in those three areas, we talk about salary ranges. What are the numbers involved in your negotiation? And then benefits. What are some of the benefits that you can negotiate? And in my research over the last 4.5 years, I've been collecting benefits for years from lots of very senior people in different sectors. And I know there are over 50 different benefits that you can negotiate on top of your salary. And some of them are specific to areas, but a lot of them are things like negotiate for additional time off, negotiating for professional development, negotiating for some of the assets that you might be given as part of your job, in order that at the end of your job, you just keep them. Things like mobile phones and laptops, those types of things. If you've been working with something like that for a couple of years, it's been depreciated on the books. And actually, it can be quite helpful to get rid of them. So that could have value for you as an individual. And the last thing I always encourage people to think about is a career enhancing opportunity. And what might that look like for you? And that's good for a couple of reasons. First of all, it signals to your boss that you're thinking about what things look like in the future for me, and you're committed to developing your own skills. So those are two really good flags that bosses like to see. So that package of salaries, benefits, and a career enhancing opportunity then gets you your ask items that then become your pitch. And then we start talking about, how do you pitch, the strategy that you can use, and what do you say when your boss gives you the dreaded no and you get a pushback. So part of what I train people is that no doesn't always mean no. In the same way as when people say to you first thing in the morning, how are you going? They don't actually need to know exactly how you're going, down to a lot of detail, what they're using that language as a greeting.
Yeah.
So sometimes in negotiations, language shows up and it stops us in our tracks. But actually part of the negotiation is to work around it. So the boss says, no, we don't have budget for that. You say something like, yes, and I can see that it's really important to stick to budget. And I'd really like to be able to explain, though, how there's this gap showing up over here, and you gently bring people back to the topic. So I actually train people to get their bosses to say no to them 3 times before it's a real no. And even then, a no today is not a no tomorrow.
Okay.
Or a no a few months down the track, right? It's sometimes when you get to that moment, the most powerful question you can say is, what are the 3 things I need to do in the next 6 months to get to where I need to go?
Yes.
Boss to tell you, and then you do those things, and then you go back 6 months later and you say, I've done the things you told me to do. Let's talk about pay conditions, and then you get it.
Funny enough, I told a client that the other day who's actually asked for you to present in the membership on this topic, identifying, because we're pretty slack, we're 10 years behind, I would say, in our industry from an HR perspective. So the performance reviews are very poor. You don't have KPIs and things like that. So I said, just be very clear in terms of what it is they want from you so that you can go back. And when you have your next review, you can say, I've done these things. I would like some feedback.
Yeah, I love that. And that's one of the suggestions I make to people as well. As one of the things that you can negotiate is that you can negotiate coming back together to have that conversation. So if your organization, as you say, is a little bit behind in terms of how they might be running their employee relations, part of what you can do is to say, can I meet with you in 6 months just to get some more of your feedback? And you formalize it.
Yeah.
You get them to do it, because you won't believe how impressive that is to a really busy boss who's trying to fit a lot of stuff in. So that is an indication that somebody is doing the thinking for them. And those people are gold.
Yeah.
Gold. So I think also when you've got loads and loads of stuff that has to happen really fast, and that it gets back to what I was saying earlier about pressured time can really be the enemy of connection. So if you can help by setting those moments yourself to get the feedback, and then you act on the feedback, make the shift yourself, and then feed that back again. All you're saying is, hello, look at me. I am a high performer. And those are the people that bosses love to take care of, because they make them look good.
Yeah.
But informally, we're all in the roles that we're in to make our bosses look spectacular. And if you can do that, they will really look after you.
Absolutely. Okay, so I know you've got a free course, but where can people find you and how can they connect with you? I'm thinking I need to hire you to negotiate more time to work on my business with my partner. So we don't know.
So you can go to www.fairpaynegotiations.com and you'll find you can connect with me there on my website. I am, as you said, I'm about to launch a little mini course that's a free. It's a freebie. Just sign up and jump in, and it will take you through an assessment process so you can assess your relationship with your boss, and then it provides you with matching strategies to help you put together your plan so that you can get recognized, and so that you can take little steps and schedule little steps in your day so that you just have these little moments over a longer period of time. It creates a wonderful habit for us as individuals. Because you remember, I think it takes 8 weeks to create a habit, right? Mm-hmm. So it's the type of plan that when you execute against that plan, it creates a really good habit for yourself, and it gives your boss feedback about how you're doing, so that when you then want to say, hey, can I grab half an hour of your time to get some feedback about how I'm going, they'll already have a good idea that you're on top of things and open and willing to get that feedback. So that will be going live in the next week. I'll have it up on my website, and there's a special offer involved there with respect to the paid course that I do.
Well, check it out.
I'm very excited about that, because haven't done a little mini course before, so putting it together has been loads of fun.
Oh, great. Alex, thank you so much for your time. I can't wait to have you in the membership.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to reconnecting and meeting everyone. It'll be great fun.
Yeah, it will be.
Today. Great.
Life stage.